ॐ गणानान्त्वा गणपतिगं मवामहे कविं कवीनामुपवस्त्रवस्त्रमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणान् ब्रह्मणस्पत आनुशृण्वोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ महागणाधिपतये नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः ॐ केशवाय नमः ॐ नारायणाय नमः हरये नमः श्रीकृष्णाय नमः. We discussed the Priyavrata's kingdom, and Priyavrata's son was Agnitra, and Agnitra's eldest son is Nabi. Nabi had no children, and therefore he performed a big yajna, sacrifice, where he worshipped Lord Narayana, praying that I want a son like you. So his request was to Narayana that I want a son like you. So the priests, so many priests were there doing the supporting Nabi king for conducting this yajna, and with the great devotion Nabi did this yajna, and Lord Vishnu preached about his dedication and devotion, and his Narayana understood he wants a son like me, like Vishnu. So the priests were explaining that yajnas are done for the sake of pleasing Narayana, but we are requesting to get a son for Nabi king. So we are sorry, we are asking something from you instead of submitting everything to you. And so Narayana, pleased about the devotion and dedication of the king Nabi, and he blessed them that you will get a son like me, but you cannot find a person like me. That's why I'm coming as your son. So everybody is surprised and pleased that Narayana is coming to born as a Nabi's son. The future son of Nabi is Narayana. So after some time, in course of time, Nabi's wife became pregnant, and the king, knowing that it was the Lord is coming in the form of his son, he looked after him properly, and he appreciated the blessings of Lord Narayana. The purpose of Rishabha Avatara was to show the world, in spite of having all sorts of luxury and a beautiful queen and luxury of the palace life as a king, in spite of all these things, Rishabha Avatara, he showed that you can still be a sannyasi within the palace, within the Grihastha ashrama. This is what he is trying to explain. In the course of the time, Nabi got the son, and this son is called Rishabha. The Rishabha was very bright child, and he grown up like a very young, handsome boy. And Rishabha, in course of the time, he married the Jayanta. Jayanti is the daughter of Indra from heaven, became the father of 100 sons. Rishabha got 100 sons. The child was named Rishabha when Nabi got the child, and Nabi crowned him as the king when he became adult, and Nabi went to the forest for Vanaprastha. Rishabha, in the course of the time, married Jayanti, the daughter of Indra, and got 100 sons from her. The eldest of them is called Bharatha. So the Rishabha's son is Bharatha, and his name was named our country as Bharatha Varsha, because Nabi's, the Rishabha's son, is Bharatha. The purpose of Rishabha Avatara was to show the world of men that a man can be a king, be surrounded by wealth and luxury and all the many things which kept him in the luxury life, live with the most beautiful woman also, and the father of many children, live the life of a perfect grihastha, and yet live like a sannyasi. This was the lesson taught to the world of men by Rishabha. Rishabha the king is an incarnation of Lord Narayana. He is telling the world that he can still be a king as well as sannyasi at the same time. That means he is maintaining the status of sannyasi within the kingdom of palace, of his own palace. It is the responsibility of a good king to set an example to his subjects and make them walk in the path of traced by out himself. This was the purpose of this avatar of Narayana. Rishabha taught men that living in a family life, the life of Grihastha, man could still so arrange his life that he could achieve dharma, artha, fame, children, happiness, and salvation in the end of his life. This is what is that's called richest living. In the end of richest living, the selfless performance of all actions, though he was himself beyond worldly things, Rishabha lived according to the rules laid down by the Brahmins and ruled the kingdom like an ideal king. So he was ideal king as well, and he had 100 children. They propagate the lesson of living a life of detachment to the world. As a king, Rishabha once called his sons to his side and taught them rules of living for his 100 sons. He's telling, he said, my sons, the human body, this is a very interesting, his teachings of Rishabha is applicable to all the living beings in the world. All the humanity should understand this. They propagate the lesson of living a life of detachment to the world. The king Rishabha once called his sons to his side and taught them the rules of living. He said, my sons, this human body has been given to us not to enjoy worldly things like animals do, but for a higher purpose. Purity of mind is essential. There are two immense gateways serving the people who are great is one gateway to salvation. Serving people who are great is one gateway of salvation. The other is the one which leads to worldly comfort and materialistic life. So there are two great gateway for one is one gateway for salvation, the other gateway for worldly objects and materialistic life. This entered by attachment of the senses and objects of the senses. In the materialistic life, the people are attached to the senses and the objects of senses. Equanimity of the mind is the only thing you should strive for. So this is Rishabha is telling his sons. Equanimity of the mind is the one thing you should all strive for. You should learn to receive gain and loss with the same calm frame mind. If you lost the money or if you earn money, if you hoard money, the your mindness or the calmness should be maintained, whether you get surplus money or less money. Anger should be conquered. Anger should be conquered, and the mind should be brought under the control. The people get angry for quickly. So this sort of angerness is not going to be good for them. Anger should be controlled by the mind, should be controlled under mind also should be controlled. Devotion to the Lord Narayana should be the sole aim of life. You should not become attached to wife and children all the time. Wealth and kingdom. So you should not attach to wife and children, wealth and kingdom all the time. Man should desire only that much which is essential for the maintenance of the body. So people should not desire for more than what is required for their body to live comfortably. Because of some wrong actions performed in the previous janma, this body has been given to you to live in. You have been made to be born in this world beset with many temptations. It is but logical that you should act in such a way that there will be no repetition of this cycle of birth and death. So that means you need to attain moksha before you don't want a rebirth again. You need to surrender to Lord Vishnu and attain moksha in this life to stop another birth. So because of the previous janma, the body has been given to us to live in. You have been made to be born in this world, beset with many temptations. It is but logical that you should act in such a way that there will be no repetition of this cycle of birth and death. So long as the body exists, so long as the mind does not think on the higher truth, so long will karma also hold its way over man. Avidya, that is ignorance of the true nature of the Atman, leads man to become involved in the snare called karma. This is, people should be understood that avidya, that means ignorance of the true nature of the Atman, leads man to become involved in the snare called karma. So long as man does not think on the Lord, his life will not find freedom. So long as the man does not think of the Lord Narayana, his life will not find freedom from this materialistic life. Man becomes more and more attached to woman and a home and a child and a thousand of other things in the grahastha life. Similarly, to these, man falls to see that the world of objects is false and he does not think of the higher wisdom which tells him the truth about the worlds he lives in. He becomes foolish and suffers as a consequence of this attachment to the worldly materialistic life. I and mine are the two dread enemies of man. Man thinks it is mine, it is I. Every time is mine. House is mine, wife is mine, children is mine, everything is mine. That mine is the one which is not allowing you to do concentration on the devotional activities. So they are true dread enemies of man. Cloud his vision, and the knots of his heart do not get loosened. Because of his love for woman, he forms a new attachments, home, land, son, relations, wealth, and so on. It goes on endlessly. The chain binding him to the earth has new links forged, and it becomes stronger and stronger. For such a man, the hopes of salvation are difficult. Indeed, it is not possible. The moment he begins to see the truth about these things, the moment that knot in his heart becomes loosened by wisdom, he loses the attachment he had towards the woman. His antakarana and mamakara leave him on their own accord. My sons, set your minds on thoughts of Lord Narayana. Abandon attachment, heat and cold, hunger and thirst, sorrow and delusion should have no effect on you. So Rishabha king is telling his 100 sons that abandon the attachment. Heat and cold, hunger and thirst, sorrow and delusion should have no effect on you. Your pursuit should be the pursuit of the only knowledge worthwhile, the knowledge of the Brahman. Surrender yourself to the Lord, dedicate your action to Him. That means you have to dedicate all your karma, all your actions, and benefit of our actions should be left to Narayana. Listen to the stories about him and keep the company of the devotees of the Lord. That means keep in the satsanga. Hate no one because everyone is an image of Lord Krishna. Everyone is a large image of Lord Narayana. So hate no one because everyone is image of the Lord. Share the pain of others. Control anger. Be alone with yourselves whenever you can, because solitude helps you to think of the Lord Narayana. Do your duties properly. Do not neglect any of them. Speak sparingly and think more. It's essential that a guru should lead the way for a shishya, a disciple. And for a son, there is no greater than guru than father. It is the duty of a father to lead his son in the right path, and it is the duty of a king to lead his subjects in the right path. I am your guru and I am telling you what you should do. When guru says the disciples getting involved in karma, It is the duty to teach them the path of freedom also. He has passed through this difficult journey called life, and he knows by experience the many pitfalls that beset the path of the man. The Guru has not compassion. If the Guru has no compassion enough towards his follower disciples to warn him about them, what use then is all the listening, all the learning from the Guru? No man will sit unannounced, unconcerned when man is drowning. A guru should be a guide, a father, a mother, well-wisher. Ponder carefully on all that I have told you. Consider this Bharata as your father. So Rishabha's first son is called Bharata, and his name Bharata came to our country Bharatha Varsha because he ruled the kingdom for a long time. Bharata ruled the kingdom of Bharatha Varsha for a long time as your father and obey him. So Rishabha king is telling his sons, the Bharata, the elder brother, is like a father to you. He is great man. Live in the world in the manner I have indicated. Bhakti is the one cure for the dread disease called moha, kama, krodha, moha, mada, matsarya, delusion. And with the help of bhakti, save yourselves from the circle of birth and death. By following the bhakti marga, by following the dedication to Lord Narayana, by surrendering to his lotus feet, the bhakti is important. Bhakti yoga or bhakti marga, yourselves from the cycle of birth and death can be prevented. Rishabha spoke these words to his sons, who were already very much like him. It was more to guide the men of the world that he gave his discourse. It was more to guide the more men for the world that he gave the discourse. He then crowned Bharata, the first son of Rishabha, the Bharata. Rishabha crowned Bharata as a king, renouncing his kingdom, his wife and children, and all that was once his Rishabha, who had never been deluded by Maya. He never had delusion of Maya. Left the country and went away. He wandered all over the world till the time of his freedom come. It is the rule of life that even when a man had no desire left, when nothing in the world moves him, when he is all ready to move away from the world, still life persists until the appointed time comes. So when a potter spins the wheel to the fashion the pot of clay, it spins along after the pot is removed from it. Also, it's going to spin. Even so, because of the some chance, because of some chance, some samskara of the previous life or birth life will not leave the body even if the deha is ready to die. It was so with the king Rishabha. He had become an avatara, Rishabha avatara, Narayana avatara Rishabha. And after a long wandering, he reached the slopes of the hills called Kutaka, Kutaka. Now it is called Kurg in Karnataka state. While he was there, a forest fire devoured the large forest where he was wandering, and he found release from the bondage called karma, which had never really touched him. Now, it is this time of the Bharata, the son of Rishabha, ruled the kingdom. He ruled the kingdom very well. He was the richest man, and his rule was perfect. So he became very famous all over the world. In later days, he famed an earth under his rule that in later days he was the richest man and his rule was perfect. So famed with each. And the Bharatha Varsha came name because he ruled the king for a long time. In the wake of its ancestors, Bharata followed all the rules conduct which was prescribed for a king, and that each was happy under his rule. Every man was happy in his rule. He was great devotee of Narayana. In the heart of Bharata was imprinted the form of Lord. When he felt that he had enjoyed the kingdom and the pleasures it had long enough, Bharata divided the kingdom among his sons, crowned his eldest son as the king, and renouncing everything, he went away to the Haridwar, to an ashrama of the sage Pulaha. The sage Pulaha is a big Rishi, and his ashrama was in the Haridwar. So he went to the ashrama of Pulaha. The ashrama was located in a picturesque spot. It was surrounded by the river Chakra, which is every day, it is even day, full of saligramas. The stones which are worshipped since the Lord Narayana is said to pervade them. He went away to Haridwar to the ashrama of the aged sage Pulaha. The ashrama was located in the picturesque spot. It was surrounded by the river Chakra, which is even today full of saligrams. The stones which are worshipped since the Lord Narayana is said to pervade them. Bharata stayed alone there, and with flowers and fruits collected by himself, he would worship Narayana every day with a full and overflowing heart, with a very devotion and bhakti. Overflowing with bhakti, he had passed beyond the stage where the pleasure of the pains of the world affect man, and his heart was filled with the peace born and renunciation and a detachment. He had reached the very ecstasy of joy, which comes of intense devotion to the Lord Narayana. His heart would melt like water when he thought of Narayana, and tears of joy would often flow from his eyes. His heart was like a deep lake into which he had immersed himself, and his ego and his self all clear. Every day he would wander around clad in the skin of a deer. He was wandering with a deer skin on his body, with his hair matted and dusty. He would invoke the Lord Narayana, who is present in the rising sun. I surrender myself to that glorious power of Narayana, which created this world, he says to Narayana, which pervades this universe and which it is created by him, which protects its beloved by the power of intelligence, which is the cause of their intellect functioning, which is lodged in the sun, thus giving its glory to the sun. Days passed, thus for him who knew no joy other than the thoughts of Lord Narayana. Once, when he was seated on the banks of the Mahanadi, bent on his morning prayers, a piteous scene met his eyes. A deer had come to the banks of the river to drink water. All of a sudden, the roar of a lion was heard. The noise seemed to come from somewhere near. Frightened by the lion's roar, which you knew that the deer was very near, the poor deer did not know which way to run. She had not even begun to drink the water for which she was thirsty. In despair born of extreme terror, she tried to leap across the river. Because of her sudden panic, the little deer, which was unborn in her tummy till then, fell into the river out of the body. So the deer was pregnant and jumped Suddenly, because of the roar of the lion came, so the deer dropped her baby in the water and, and ran away to save her life. The mother deer, when she reached the opposite bank, lay panting and crawled to a cave where after a few moments she died. Bharatha, who was nearby, had been watching the entire incident, was overcome with pity for the poor unfortunate baby deer, which had been born just a few moments back and which was struggling on the surface of the water. He gathered it up in his arms and took it to the hermitage. He fed the baby deer with the milk and he fondled it and comforted it like a mother. Days passed and the deer became older. By then, it had become the very life of Bharata. Because he looked after for it some time, he got attached to that. He became greatly attached to this living thing, baby deer. He who had renounced this kingdom, his wife and children, and everything else, became moderately fond of this animal deer. It became with him an obsession. He would not bear to to let it go out of his sight even for a moment. If it went out of grace, he would become worried and tell himself, "My poor child dear has no friends, no kinsman, no mother, and no father. He has no except me. He has no one except me. I am his only refuge. He trusts me completely. I cannot fail in the duty of looking after this baby deer. He has he has decided himself to look after the baby deer." He would spend all his time with the baby deer. He would wander in the forest along with the deer and he would carry him on his shoulder sometime. He thought that the young animal, the deer, was tired, and if he did not come back to him when evening drew near, he would be worried, terribly worried. He would say to himself, "Will I see my beloved deer again or not? Perhaps a wolf or a wild dog or a tiger or a lion might have eaten them. Perhaps a wolf or a wild hog." The sun is about to set and still the deer has not come back to the house. Perhaps a lion has eaten up. He is worried. Perhaps a tiger even now pursuing it. He would walk about the agony and say, "It's dangerous to leave the deer alone in the forest. I must go and look for it and search the deer." So saying himself, he would wander into the forest and, like one demented, call out to the deer in affectionate terms, and when he found it, would bring it him in his arms. If he see in the forest, he will catch it and bring it to the ashrama. This affection for the deer made him forget all his other austerities and devotional activities. His daily worship of the Lord, his samadhi, when he would sit and concentrate on the form of the Lord Narayana, were all now things of the past. When he tried to worship, the deer comes in his mind and his face, with his arms and with his horns, and Bharata would offer to the deer all the things what deer likes to have it. Young blades of grass which he had gathered, he collect the grass for the deer to eat. When the sat in meditation, when Bharata sat in meditation, the form of the Lord would not come before him. Only the deer is coming. The, the young deer would come before his eyes and he would smile all the time with the deer, with the thoughts of deer. Thoughts of the deer in his mind is everything for him at the moment. And a deer was only thing that matters for him. He would fondle it like a mother, and he would spend hours together talking to it. This was indeed a terrible state of the affairs of one who had renounced the world of all that materialistic life and palace and kingdom. Days passed by, and death, which is no respecter persons, finally drew near Bharata with the speed of a storm and entered into him like a snake would into the catching to the rat, where the rat lives. Bharata fixed his dying eyes as the deer, and his last thought was of the deer. So he died thinking of his deer all the time, aching for this pet. Bharata give up his breath. So Bharata died seeing his deer all the time, looking after every deer. So because he was remembering the deer all the time and looking after the deer all the time, Bharata was born again as a deer now. Since has his thought were fixed on the deer, since with this lost breath, he was still thinking of the deer all the time, silently. He was born as a deer. But because of his previous austerities and prayer to Narayana in the previous life, he had the privilege of remembering his previous birth. Overcome the self-pity, he told himself, what a pitiable state is mine now. I had abandoned all kinds of attachment, materialistic life, kingdom, wife, and children. I had made the forest of my home, and my mind was ever lost in the thought of the Lord, and is remembering the many stories about the Lord. There was place in my heart for Narayana, and nothing else could find a place him there. My mind was finally fixed on his lotus feet, and into that calm lake came disturbing factor, the affection of a deer. I developed the affection to the deer, so powerful that affection was, it made me forget everything else, even my Lord Narayana. I had strayed far away. I have tried my best to keep far away from the path of materialistic life I had been following. As a result of that, I have been born as a deer instead of reacting, instead of reaching the Brahmi state. So instead of reaching moksha, he became a deer. Such is the power of affection and attachment to worldly things. I must try and exhaust this birth by associating myself with the people whose thoughts dwell on Narayana all the time. So he's looking for satsanga. He's a deer now. My my mind will once again become all attached to the Lord Narayana, higher sphere, by thinking on him, by listening to his praises, by listening to a conversation and talks about this glory. I will be rid of this janma, and I will become free from the earthly bondage. In the form of a deer, Bharata traveled towards the Salagrama, which was the spot where rishis congregated. Staying there, living on the grass growing in the ashrama, and drinking the water in the river flowing there, Bharata spent his life painfully because he's a deer now, waiting for the death which would relieve him. Finally, he died and was granted freedom from his form of a deer, a mere animal. So the life of Bharata ended up as a deer and he died as a deer now. There was a Brahmin belonging to the Angirasa clan. He was a very good man. He he had followed the rules of conduct set down by Brahmin. He had 9 sons. There was a Brahmin belonging to the Angirasa Gotra. He was a good man. He had followed the rules of conduct set down from Brahmin. He had 9 sons by his first wife, and his second wife bore him a son and a daughter. The son of the second wife was none other than Bharata himself, who had to be born again. So this time Bharata, after dying as a deer, he is born with the Brahmin's family and is born again as a man with this Brahmin family. Bharata had been the son of Rishabha, an incarnation of Lord Narayana, and so Narayana had himself taught his son of the Dharma to be followed by a mumukshu, one who aches for freedom from bondage. Bharata had been initiated into the Atma Vidya and he had almost achieved it. But then, because of the Prarabdha Karma, which he had to finish, he had to be born as a deer, and after that, one more Janma was needed to grant the freedom so that he became a Brahmin's boy in the Brahmin family. Relentless is fate, and the path to salvation is not easy. It has been said that the yogis are born in the homes of good men, and Bharata was born in the home of good Brahmin family. Because of the disgust he felt with himself as a result of his fall from the grace of his previous Janma, Bharata did not want to form any new attachment with anyone. So in his family, he was found to hold himself aloof from others. He was a difficult child as far as his father concerned. The poor man tried his best in initiate his son into the Gayatri Upasana. He did conducted the Upanayanam. So the mystic mantra. And though he spent several months in his attempt, he was not able to get any response from his son. Bharata would deliberately mispronounce the words of reciting the Gayatri mantra, them out of tune. He refused to learn anything, and gradually he managed to produce the impression of that he was a deaf mute. People called him a fool, an intricate, imbecile, but he was not in the least affected by what people call him. He remembered his previous births, and he was bent on only one thing: freedom from the earthly bondage. That is his main aim. So, like rain falling on the back of the buffalo, the the comments of this men, the world did not affect him at all. In the list of, nor did it affect his general behavior. His father was drowned in the performance of worldly action, duties, and worldly affections. And he was very unhappy that he could not make a good Brahmin of his son. In the course of time, he died. His wife left her his wife left her son and daughter in the care of their stepsons and their mother. She followed her husband on the funeral pyre. Once their father was dead, the brothers of Bharata felt that they did not have to do much for Bharata. Then they felt that they did not have any responsibility as far as Bharat was concerned. They lost they lost no time in ill treating their stepbrother. Bharata would never protest, and that made him happy. Bharata would never protest, and that made them happy. They would make him labor in the fields of like an ordinary workman, and they insulted his birth as a Brahmin. But Bharata did not mind it at all. He would work till sense and would be satisfied with the whatever, and sometimes he would get only the small amount small amount from grains. They all tasted the same to Bharata. Sometimes it would be old, most difficult to get food grains. So they shared the food grains what they got. They all tasted in some of the Bharatas, and he spent his hours thinking on the Lord and being mental work for his brothers. There was a robber, leader of the robber, who did not have any children. He was told that offering a man being a sacrifice to the goddess Kali, would get him a son. This robber think by sacrificing a Brahmin boy, he will get all the things what he want. They searched in vain, although the day and they were saw that might had set in. They were wandering around. Suddenly, at a distance, they saw a human being standing on the mound, standing on the ground, standing on a raised spot. Bharata was guarding the fields to prevent their being destroyed by deer or any other cows and wild hogs during the night. The servants of the robber chieftain drew near and looked Bharata, and he had always been unmindful of the comfort of the body because he was looking for salvation. He had always been unmindful of the comforts of the body, rain or shine, cold or heat. He, all the same to him, he had not even covered his body properly. As he was used to lying in the ground or anywhere, his body was covered with dust and grime. His hair was all dirty and matted. He was the person, he was the he was like a precious stone covered with a clay. His sacred thread was black and dull. Life in the open and hardy, the life in the open life he had undergone all these years had made the body of Bharata strong and powerful. Looking at him, the number of servants of the robber king thought that he was the perfect victim. His body, though dirty, was without single blemish or even a scratch. They lost no time in making up their minds. They tied him up with ropes and carried it away with them. They were rather surprised at his unresisting attitude when they tied him up. They took him to the temple. He was bathed in holy water. He was bathed in the holy water, and he was dressed in the clothes made for sacrificial victim. They smeared sandal paste all over his body, and his forehead bore the mark of a red sindura. They made him partake of a big meal and then placed him before the altar of the goddess. All the while, Bharata sat silent and he was unaffected. The priest then pronounced the incantations and they lifted his sword to kill the Brahmin. The goddess could not bear the the goddess could not bear the glow emanating from the Brahmin sitting there ready to be killed. His Brahminic glory was burning her, and he came out, and she came out unable to bear it. She saw that a great crime was about to be happened by killing Bharata. A poor, unresisting Brahmin was to be killed by a group of robbers for personal benefit. It was described to her. She was followed by a group of servants from the heavens. It was ascribed to her. She was followed by a group of servants from the heavens. The goddess came out of the idol and protected this misery of killing of Bharata, Brahmin boy, and the crime was ascribed to her. She was followed by a group of servants from the heavens. She stood there watching while they fell on the miscreants, killed all of them, and drank their fill of their blood. The goddess disappeared after blessing the Brahmin boy, and he too went on his way. So the Bharata, the Brahmin boy, once a king by name Rahoguna was traveling along the banks of the river Kshomati. He was Lord, he was told. So Bharata is a Brahmin boy now, and he was saved by the goddess Kali. And after the Kali saved him, he started walking around traveling along the banks of the river Ikshumati. He was lord of the countries Sindhus and Sairava. He was being carried in a palanquin, and bearers thought that one man more would make it easier for them to carry the palanquin. Palanquin, the palaki. That's what the people who were carrying the palaki, carrying the king called Rahuguna. He was being carried in a palaki, and the bearers thought that one more man would make it easier for them to carry the weight of the king. They looked around and their eyes fell on this Bharata Brahmin boy who was standing there. He was well built, he looked strong and tough, and they felt that he was an ideal for the job. Accordingly, they called out to him and ordered him to help him. Bharata, the Brahmin boy, who presented the appearance of a stupid person, did not speak a word. Though it was degrading for a Brahmin to carry the palaki of a Kshatriya, he did not protest. He lifted it silently along with others. On the way, at every step, he would scrutinize to see if there were any helpless germs, insects, or worms on the path. The Brahmin Bharata was worried he may step on the insects or germs and killing sins. He will accumulate sins. Making sure that there are none, or he would walk properly in that place, his foot on the spot. Naturally, this upset the rhythm of the space with the palaki movement, with the carriers of other carriers. The palaki was lopsided. The king became quite annoyed about it and said, "Why it is palaki is leaning to the one side like this? Can you not do your job in the proper manner?" The servant said, "It is not our fault, my lord. This newcomer is not falling into step with us, and hence the inconvenience to you. The king looked at the newcomer, and he looked him up and down. In a sarcastic voice, he said, "Poor man, you look pitiable. You have been carrying the burden of all by yourself all this distance. You are very tired and emaciated, looks very thin. Your muscles are flabby, and you are not tough like the others. My friend, you are also too old to work." Bharata was silent. He did not speak a word. In result, he was silently keeping quiet. He lifted up the palanquin to his shoulders. They began to move. They began to move. A few steps had have taken, a few feet of ground had been covered, and again the same thing happened. The palanquin was moving towards one side. This time the king was very angry. He said, "You fool, what do you think you are doing? You are behaving like a walking corpse. You disregard my commands, and you are behaving impertinently." So king became angry. "I will teach you a lesson, and I will do it so thoroughly that you will get some sense into your head. I must punish your arrogance." The king was proud of the fact that he was a king, the master. We could do to what he liked in his under his as servants. In him two gunas, tamas and rajasa, were predominant, and so his pride. His arrogance had his arrogance had grown beyond all control. He thought that he was a great man and that every other man was inferior to him. He had not benefited by the company of good and good living people who could have, if they had been given a chance, instilled in him of some wisdom. This foolish king spoke cruel and arrogant towards the Brahmin, who could not hurt anyone or anything, not even worm crawling on the ground. Bharata looked long and silently at the king. A slight smile was seen at the corner of his mouth. Without raising his voice, without any relentless, he said, "You are angry with me because you think that I am not carrying your palaki properly. You spoke with sarcasm when you said that I have been carrying the burden of the long and that I am tired. Your meaning is that I am not one bit tired by this burden. In a way, your words are true, but your desire to hurt me with your sarcasm is not right. I am afraid pointless. It does not hurt me. Shall I tell you why? You are under the impression that this body of mine is real and that the burden it was it was become carrying all the while. He was carrying the palaki, and the palaki was leaning to the sides, and king became angry, and he asked the question, "Who are you?" Uh, but how can you be sure that these two are real? I cannot prove that this body of mine is real, nor can I prove that a burden it has been carrying is also real. Under the circumstances, how can it be possible to hurt a person or a thing which is non existing? The real I in me has absolutely no connection with this so called body of mine, and the results of this body is or injustice heaped on this body do not affect me in the least. You said that I have been carrying the burden alone for a long distance and that I am tired. You mean to insult me. I know what I do not choose choose to be insulted. The Brahmin boy Bharatha, he doesn't want to be insulted by this king. The reason is that he is very pious man. He is a disciple of Narayana. It is true there is a distance to be covered. If there is a purpose to be achieved by covering that distance, and if these two factors have anything to do with me, then and only me, then should I be affected by your remarks. But then I am not sure of the existence of either of these things or my connection with them, and so I am not affected by your words. So Bharata, the Brahmin boy, said um, that he is not affected by his remarks. I am not affected by your words, you said. That I am not big out to conceal. I am not big but emaciated. The words are meaningless considering that I am a formless and the qualification big or small, lean or fat do not apply to me at all. These words are for describing the body, the home of the Atman. So he is telling about Atmana. These words for describing the body, the home of Atman and not the Atman. Fatness and leanness, diseases of the mind and the body, hunger, thirst, fear, quarrelsomeness, desire, old age, sleep, lust, pain, all these affect one who thinks that he has a body and not as an Atma. One who thinks that he has a body, then he will suffer all this. Not me, because I know the truth myself. This body is short lived, limited, while I am the endless, eternal. You call me walking corpse, so are you. And so is every man and animal on this earth. O King, the process of birth and death do not confine themselves to me alone. All things which are undergoing change are liable to birth and death. Every moment there is a birth and death taking place. If by any chance wealth and the owning of wealth are permanent, then this command of yours and this threat of yours that you will punish me will be plausible. But it is not so. The difference between a king and a servant arises because of the sense of quality and duty. I cannot find any other person, any other reason for it. Therefore, in such a thing as a superior person, and there is no one inferior to him, but you do not seem to realize it. Tell me what I should do now. I have realized myself. I do appear to be a stupid man, a deaf man without any feelings, a fool, but really the things of the world do not affect me, nor in the least. The Brahmin boy is telling the king, how then is your punishment going to affect me? Since I know that I am far away from all this, it will be like a kneading flour which was already been kneaded. So it will have no effect on my behavior. Bharata took the plankin, took the palaki and tried to place it on once again on his shoulder. Now this Bharata, the Brahmin boy, teaches Brahma Vidya to this guru. Drained of all the pride and arrogance by the words of Bharata, the king Rahuguna fell at his feet and spoke in a voice choked with tears born of shame. He said, my pride has been destroyed by you. Forgive me. The king is telling the Brahmin now, my pride has been destroyed by you. Forgive me for impertinence and please grant me a boon. Please be gracious enough to tell me who you are. I am the ruler of Sindhu and Saurya king. and they call me as Rahuguna. I was on my way to the great Kapila to sit at his feet and then learn Brahmavidya from him. But you seem to be Kapila himself, who has come and to me on his own account to save me. To what good actions in my previous Janma do I owe this great good fortune that is fallen on me? Please initiate me into the science of truth. So the king is asking the Brahmin boy, Bharatha, please initiate me into the science of truth. Bharatha was filled with pity for this king, who seemed to be really eager to learn. He said, I will try to help you, and you will find the path of salvation. Listen to me very carefully while I explain it all to you only. Bharata, the Brahmin boy, sat on a large slab of rock which was nearby, and the king sat most humbly. And at the same time, Bharata, the Brahmin boy, Lord, he sat on a large slab of rock which was nearby, and the king was sat most humbly at the feet of the Brahmin. Bharata then began his discourse on Brahmavidya. So this is the Brahmana is telling Brahmavidya to King Rahuguna. It is the mind of man which causes him enter to fall into the morass called samsara, maya. So the man has got causes. The mind is the cause of moha and samsara. To find freedom from it, it is the mind which could be subdued. When this mind is tainted with the three gunas, Satvika guna, Rajasika guna, and Tamasika guna, its path is set in the world of objects. It will have to keep on performing actions, and good actions and bad actions, or has to be separated. When the gunas are mixed, Samasika guna, Rajasika guna, Satvika guna, its path is set in the world of objects. It will have to keep on performing the actions, good or bad, and the cycle of births and deaths will be endless. It will acquire desires, and according to the desires, its progress will be towards the higher or towards the lower, as the case may be. Pleasure and pain will affect the life of the man, and there will be no end to it. So long as the mind is attached to the things worldly matters, he will not able to attain moksha in this life. Take the example of a little lamp. It has a wick, and the wick is fed by the quality of the ghee on the bottom. When it burns, the flame will be colored because of the quality of the ghee which is feeding it. And the smoke and light emanating from the lamp, it will all have the quality of the ghee. However, the ghee is all exhausted. The wick will then burn on its own accord with the color of and the glow which is natural, and it will eventually be converted to nothingness. Even so, the mind, so long as it is fed by the gunas, it will become colored by them and act accordingly. When the gurus Even so, the mind, so long as it is fed by the gunas, it will become colored by them and act accordingly. When the gunas left the mind, it will soon reach the stage when it will have no existence. Just as the wind pervades the entire space, the Lord pervades the entire universe. When the jiva sheds all attachment, conquers the six enemies, and illuminates itself with the lamp of wisdom, then the jiva will be free. But till then, he will have to go through the pain of being born again and again into this world. The mind should be controlled. If the senses and the six arch enemies have to be conquered, the mind, if it is led towards the feet of the Lords, if it takes refuge there, then there is no fear of its losing itself in the forest called samsara. Once the jiva is set on the path called karma, it's best with many pitfalls. Birth and death comprise a forest. The jiva gets lost in this forest, deluded in many ways, deluded mostly by Maya. The three gunas make him perform actions which are good, bad, or different, and in proportion to them, he acquires a certain amount of punya or papa, depending upon the karma. The aim of the jiva now becomes the pursuit of happiness, and in this search of happiness, it gets lost in the wilderness called samsara. The six senses are well like six thieves who who steal on you when you are aware of their approach and rob you of your wisdom. They make you become attached to the woman, become home, child, and money, wealth, power, and such like. You get involved in Maya of the samsara and are helpless in finding your way out of it. You are then well established in the grahastha ashrama, which is indeed a very sad state of affairs. The earth, though it looks as if the earth, though it looks as though all the plants have been removed from its surface, is in reality not bare. The seeds which have already been buried in it sprout forth with no time and action. The earth, though it looks as though all the plants have been removed from its surface, is in reality not bare. The seeds which have been already been buried in it sprout with no time, and this cycle will go on and on until the seeds are burnt away. The grihastha is like a box of camphor. In course of time, the camphor gets sublimed, and it looks as though the box is empty, but the smell, the vasana, is still remaining, and it will cling to the box. So long as the box has an existence, so long as the box is an entity, the vasana will persist and it will remain part of the box until the box is completely destroyed. Once you get involved in this ashrama by name Grihastha, there is no salvation. There is no salvation for you, king. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. So these are the six enemies, archers for Bhakti Yoga. Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya. You got two Ks, one L, and two M's. Kama, Krodha is two Ks, Lobha is one, and three M's are Moha, Maya, Matsarya. The senses and mind, which is the master of the senses, all these will lure away from the path of salvation. Think of the life in the earth. There is so much pain, loss, happiness, sorrow, love, hatred, fear, delusion, madness, avarice, and jealousy, hunger, thirst, pain in the mind and pain in the body. Birth and its arch enemy, death, are all there. So birth and death keep on happening in the grihastha ashrama. Man has no time to think of the Lord, and he never keeps the company of saints who have renounced worldly things. Still, even in spite of all these drawbacks, there is a hope for a man. If he controls the mind, if he learns the art of pulling the reins of the mind, and if we can conquer the six enemies. What are those six enemies? One is Kama, Krodha, Lobha. Moha, Mada, Matsarya. All these six enemies, if we conquer that and concentrate on devotional activities to pray for Narayana, then there is a possibility you're going to get moksha is possible. This wisdom cannot be obtained by penance, not by performing your religious rites faultlessly, nor by feeding 1,000 people, not by charities performed by grihasthas, nor by chanting the Vedas incessantly, nor by the worship of the gods, only by falling under the feet of Lord Narayana and his devotees, falling to feet of his saints and taking the dust of their feet, surrendering himself as a guru, surrendering himself to a guru, can man attain salvation. Let a man then desirous of getting freedom from the birth and death spend all his time with the bhaktas of the Lord. He will then learn how to break away from the bondage called delusion, Maya. The stories of the Lord and the singing of his prayers will guard his spiritual wealth from the thieves who are lodged in his body. The six thieves are Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. Soon, very soon, man can give up on his ego and his mind will obey him. The rest is easy. O king, learn to renounce everything what you got. Be compassionate towards all living beings. See Lord Krishna or Narayana in all the living beings. Serve the bonds of attachment to everything. With a mind, pure mind, pure and free, you will soon reach the other shores of this immense ocean called samsara, and assure you, you will not come back. So you don't have to reborn again. Rahuguna prostrated before this Brahmana and said, my lord, being born as a man is the greatest blessings granted by the Jiva, granted to the Jiva by the Lord. I am not jealous of gods at all, since it is not even to everyone, not even the gods, to have the god fortune of coming across great souls like you. I have had that unequal privilege by your company for just a muhurta. All my ignorance has been driven away. I am rid of my pride and ego. You have you have taught me that there is only one duty for man, and that is surrendered to the Lord Narayana. I bow before you again and again. There is no other way in which I can express my greatness to you. Bharata, the Brahmin boy, blessed him and went to his way to wander on the face of the earth as long as the Lord thought it fit to keep his body alive. The next chapter is Ajamidas. Ajamida Upakhyana. Um, all these stories helps man to attain salvation by surrendering to Lord Narayana, and that is the goal of the life. We will discuss with Ajamida Upakhyana next time. ओम समोस्तनंताय सहस्रमूर्तये सहस्रपादाक्षरपा सहस्रनाम्ने पुरुषाश्वते सहस्रकोटियुगदारणे नमः सहस्रकोटियुगदारणे नमः आकाशात् परितं यथागत सागरं सर्वदेव नमस्कारः श्रीकेशवं परिहत्यो नमः सर्वभेदेशत्पुण्यं सर्वतीर्थेषु यत्फलं तत्फलं प्रमाप्त वासनाद् वासुदेवस्य वासन्ते जगत्रयं सर्वभूतने वासुदेवस्य कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना मा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणाय समर्पयामि नारायण समर्पयामि ओम तत्सत् हरि ओम तत्सत्